Welcome to Rooted in Retirement with Zach Gray, founder of Rooted Wealth Advisors. Zach and the team help families here in Illinois plan successfully for retirement. They strive to understand all of your financial needs to help guide you on the path to your ideal retirement. This is Rooted in Retirement.
Welcome to Rooted in Retirement. I'm Amy Sharp. It's no secret that women tend to outlive men in every country around the world. So how could this impact your retirement? Zach Gray, founder of Rooted Wealth Advisors, is here to explore some of the unique financial issues women tend to face in retirement. And later, if leaving a legacy for your loved ones is important to you, Zach shares some tips you don't want to miss. That's coming up later in this week's Retirement Game Plan. And Zach, it is good to be back with you as always.
Excited to chat with you in this segment.
I'm excited about this topic. Obviously, I'm a woman. I have things on my mind when it comes to retirement. And I'm sure that you're going to answer a lot of those questions because really, whether you're single, widowed, married, there are so many things that women need to take into account as they approach retirement. And the big topic that we mentioned off the top is that women tend to live longer. How can this really be a huge impact for them?
Well, let's just cut to the chase. If you're going to live longer, it becomes your problem, right? So I say that in a tone that might sound a little bit harsh, but it is very true. And sometimes, and it really doesn't matter if we're talking to male or female, we'll see a spouse that maybe kind of just drifts away from the conversation from time to time. And maybe they just don't feel like they're engaged in the conversation, they don't understand it. And I will say that there's certain things that, my wife is really the expert with when it comes to, the kids and kids' health and all the checkups and all of that. She knows it like the back of her hand, and frankly, I just don't know that much about it. Shame on me. On the flip side of the coin, yes, I'm a financial advisor, and so I think she leans on that to say, hey, how are we doing in terms of, kind of planning and getting things set for retirement, though it's some time away. Are we on the right track and are we doing the right thing? And I can obviously speak to that. But what I would say is especially in retirement, and really I think that this should be something that should be brought, back to a young age, is that we both need to have our eyes on that plan. Frankly, whether it's the kids that I gave for an example, or whether it's our finances, we should both be looking at that and understanding, because the worst can happen. There can be a tragic event, and when it is too late, it is just that, it is too late. So if statistically speaking, the woman is going to live longer, I think that is something that's very important for all women to hear. Frankly, I think it's important for everyone to hear that we take a look at this plan together and make sure we understand at least the basics of it.
I do believe it's so important for the woman and the man to be involved in the conversation, come to the same table and really understand what's going on in their financial plan. I'm curious what women that you talk with are most concerned about when it comes to their retirement.
I think that it's just the confusion, because at least in a married situation, historically speaking, and it's starting to change more and more, is that became, maybe more the spouse's, concern in terms of planning and so on and so forth. And that has just led to a lot of confusion on how does this look for us, moving forward. I think the biggest question there, though, is they say, I want to be okay. I don't want to run out of money. I want to make sure that I have enough. That's typically the question that we get asked, and especially when we see a spousal couple sit down at the table, it might be someone chasing, returns or having a question about that, and I think that many times the other spouse just wants to have that comfort, So I would just say that that's the number one question that we see. I want to make sure that we're okay. I want to make sure that we're good. And I will tell you is that there's many times where it's the woman that's leading the conversation. I mean, there's plenty of examples that run through my mind of great clients of ours where it's, he doesn't really understand all of what's going on. She definitely does. But once again, to kind of stay away from just gender, it can be on either side of the coin. Make sure that we understand this plan so we can follow it through.
It's because we are taskmasters, Zach. You understand
that is very
right?
true.
We are taskmasters, and we are always thinking about that. Interesting statistic that women in the United States control a huge portion of personal wealth in this country, and that's around $14 trillion. Yet, according to the AARP, about 12% of women feel very confident. And I think that's kind of a disturbing statistic because my gosh, we should feel better about things.
Yeah, and that number's only going to grow. I mean, once again, let's just cut to the chase. Baby boom generation that's obviously entering retirement at this point. Massive numbers in terms of demographics as we look back in history. And chances are a good chunk of those women will outlive their male counterparts, whether that be a married situation or just looking at males versus females, right? Just comparing the two. So as you start to think about wealth and how that number will continuously grow as just time marches on, yes, I do think that frankly, anyone in that situation should have a little bit more confidence and control, let alone if we want to get gender specific, back to your point. We do a lot of women's only events, which, frankly, fill up very quickly, whether it's at the library or a college, sometimes it's over a dinner workshop. And those events, we will pack the house. And I think that the irony there is that obviously there's more women in retirement, back to this situation of females outliving males. And I think it's very important to take this look of saying, wow, how can we help that moving forward?
I do believe it's very generational, Zach, because I do believe that my mom not wanting to be a part of the conversation is going to be completely different from who I am currently.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And I would just kind of say once again, I'll reflect back to, the past is not necessarily where we're going with the future, though I do think that this is a concept everyone should hear. Once again, we should have, especially in a spousal situation, all eyes on that plan. And if you're a single gal watching this, by all means realize that all of that rests on your shoulders and your shoulders alone. So understanding what you have going on, the moving parts, that's so very important.
Okay, I have more questions for you, so don't go away.
Sounds good.
I'll be right back with you. And up next, according to Nationwide, about 80% of women list healthcare costs going out of control as a top fear in retirement. Zach explains how to get in front of that issue to help preserve your income in retirement. And later in this week's retirement game plan, leaving a legacy, how planning now can make a big difference later. Stay tuned.
You know you want to retire. You might even know when you want to retire. What you don't know is what the world will look like. A short market drop, a crash, a recession. What if I told you these words don't have to change your retirement dreams? World events can impact your retirement, but thankfully, they don't have to. Can your retirement survive the unexpected? Visit the link to find your risk score to help you prepare for retirement when you're ready. It's time for you, not outside forces, to be in control of your retirement. Find your risk score so you can be ready no matter what comes next.
You have a club for every scenario. A driver for the long holes. Wedges to get you over the hazards. And a putter for when you need a touch of finesse. What about your retirement? Will you have enough to play the back nine? Call to set your 15-minute phone visit today and let's find out. Get a second set of eyes on your retirement plan.
Welcome back to Rooted in Retirement with Zach Gray of Rooted Wealth Advisors.
I'm here with Zach Gray, founder of Rooted Wealth Advisors. And Zach, compared to men, women tend to live longer. That's according to the World Health Organization. They contribute less to tax-qualified accounts. That's the Department of Labor. And they draw less from Social Security, CNBC. And they face higher health care and long-term care expenses. Those are a lot of important points to make. And I think really the one that sticks out to me are the medical expenses. And what do women particularly need to be prepared for in this topic?
Well, they need to be prepared for a longer life expectancy. We talked about that a lot. And so there's a couple things that come into play there. I think of my Granny Joyce, awesome gal, single mom, raised 4 kids. And, my father would be enough to drive you nuts, right? But did an amazing job in, kind of scrimped and saved and did what she could to, make sure to take care of the bills, get the kids out of the house and get them off on their own 2 feet. And she remarried to Howie, real fun guy, Harold. And, they looked at, his pension and they looked at Social Securities that were coming into the household, some savings that they had put away. And they thought, you know what, we're good. Like both of us can be retired. We're in an okay spot. And this was right around the turn of the century. And I was actually getting ready to go to college. And a lot of this shaped me becoming an advisor. But to cut to the chase, it is important to understand that Harold got sick not too far into her retirement. Thus, the market's moving downwards. And I don't think that, she was overly aggressive, but she is having to pull some money from these accounts. This kind of goes back to your question. So you start to think about healthcare in women. How does this affect? Well, obviously, she was pulling money out to pay for healthcare expenses for Harold. Harold lived a few years and then passed. Then at that point, now it's all on her shoulders, right? There was some changes to the household. There's no longer 2 Social Securities that are coming into the household. There's changes to other cash flows that they had. There's changes to taxes. They're no longer married filing joint, and now all of this pressure is on solely her. And once again, she's more than capable and doing a great job in retirement. But what I would say is a lot of pressure for her to deal with Harold's healthcare concerns, and now she has to prepare for her own, right? And how does this look? And obviously she's lived much longer than Harold. We're obviously decades past that turn of the century. So that's important for everyone to understand. How does this look? And I tend to think of it not only for that female, because she likely will live longer. What about helping your spouse along the way? Now we're pulling money out for that as well. So that's kind of a personal story, but I think it kind of, lightens this concern of saying, well, boy, not only just for me, but what if I'm having to pull money out to pay for his expenses as well?
So much to think about, and I'm certain that not everyone has really gone deep enough to really understand that part of it. Another thing that when we talk about women in retirement is that they tend to leave their advisor maybe once their spouse dies. Why is that?
I guess my transparent opinion on this is that they probably weren't given a lot of that attention over the years. And I can think of several clients that come to mind. And I almost think of 2 ends of the spectrum here. Some of which where the male did maybe bring in more income, did save a little bit more, back to that opening statistic that you had in terms of saving into qualified accounts, and said, Zach, I'm comfortable handling a lot of this, but I just want to make sure that I'm preparing. First off, I think that you can help, or I wouldn't be here at the table. But secondarily, if something does happen to me, I'm really concerned that my spouse is going to need help. She doesn't understand all of these moving parts. I've done that myself. Sometimes they're saying, I shouldn't have done that all myself, but I've just kind of taken that on, and now I feel like, she doesn't really want to become involved or just doesn't know that much about it. And once again, this could be on the flip side of the coin in terms of gender here. But that being said, I can think of a few clients that passed away, and we were able to step right in and help that widow. And thus, we recognize the fact that we need to probably be speaking, to that gal as well. I think that's so very important. And I'll just be clear. When we sit down and we're buying something that's a major purchase for our household, if someone only speaks to one of the 2, chances of them getting much of that business is not good. So I just would say that I think that that's a learning moment for a lot of advisors out there, but you should feel respected and you should want to be cared for by your advisor. And obviously we hope that we always, put that across the table to whomever the client might be.
I think you might have just answered my next question, but that's okay because I know there's more out there. Biggest piece of advice for women in retirement, what would that be from you?
I would say just make sure that you're involved, right? And that kind of encompasses everything that we've been talking about. And once again, I should be more involved as I opened this show about with the kids and on all the shots and the updates and all the health care that my wife takes care of, all of that. I don't even hardly know how to draw the Motrin out, right, to take care of, when they have a cold or something. That being said, I need to do much better about that. And I also need to be much more inviting, to my spouse to learn more about the things that I handle and how that plays out. And yes, some of that is maybe a little bit more typical of yesteryear, whether it's, the cars and the maintenance and, some of which is maybe even kind of the financial side, obviously because of what I do. I would just say, make sure that you're fully involved with your spouse, understanding a lot of these moving parts. How does this look? And chances are, once again, I don't mean to be too crude here, but it will likely be your problem, single or married, to the gal, because that life expectancy is going to be longer. So do realize that. And once again, if you're maybe not getting that at this point, elbow your spouse, or if you're a single gal, take that very seriously because you're going to outlive your male counterparts.
Really important insights. Thanks so much, Zach. Straight ahead, Zach explains why legacy planning can be so crucial to your retirement and how to get started. That's next in this week's Retirement Game Plan. And still to come, Zach answers some of your questions. We're back in just a moment.
Hi, it's Zach Gray from Rooted Wealth Advisors. If you're like many people, you might be wondering if you're ready for retirement. Have you saved enough? How much income will you need? When can you retire? Planning for retirement can feel overwhelming. That's why we created our Retirement Roadmap Toolkit. It's designed to give you the resources to gain confidence as you start your journey to and through retirement. Visit the link today to get your free toolkit. At Rooted Wealth Advisors, we believe you deserve to have a great retirement. Visit the link to receive your free kit today.
Social Security. You've been paying into the system your whole career. Now it's time to get the most out of it. But with so many choices, what's the best strategy for you? And how can you maximize your benefits? Find out in this no-obligation Social Security report. Learn how your Social Security benefits can play a role in your overall retirement income plan. A lot of factors go into optimizing your benefits, and if you make an informed decision, you could end up with tens of thousands of extra dollars in retirement. You only get one chance to make the best decision for you. Take the first step and download the Social Security report today.
You're watching Rooted in Retirement with Zach Gray of Rooted Wealth Advisors.
Leaving a legacy to loved ones is important to many of us. In this week's retirement game plan, Zach explains how your estate plan can fit into your overall plan for retirement. Zach?
Thanks, Amy. And in this week's retirement game plan, we're going to talk to you about legacy planning. Now, legacy planning to us is very, very important. We talk about that with our Rooted Retirement process all the time. And we talk about income, investments, taxes, and then we group together legacy at the end. Now, legacy to us is a part of our planning process. It's much more than just leaving money behind. It's how do you want to be remembered? And really, what is your legacy? That can encompass a lot of different things. Healthcare planning is a big component of that. But in today's retirement game plan, we're going to talk specifically to estate planning. So that being said, there's a couple ways of which you can go about doing this. And secondarily, there's a couple things that you should be thinking about as you think about your estate plan. What I would tell you is that when it's too late, well, frankly, it's too late. And if you do nothing, there's a lot of things that could ensue with that. I will tell you that I've sat around many conference rooms tables over my, almost few decades in the business, and there's been a lot of arguments that have happened. That's not necessarily ideal. I think that if we could understand that mom and dad had a certain way that they wanted things distributed, that, well, if we could go back in time, chances are they would fix that. They would change that. They would let everyone in the family know, hey, this is how I think things should be done. So doing nothing is not necessarily, in my opinion, the best thing to go about handling such an important thing as an estate. You need to give some direction on how that is to play out. So I will tell you is that if you jointly own property, that is something that we can then start to work with. You can have joints with right of survivorship to a lot of some of your monies and your dollars that you have invested. That is something to be pointed out. That being said, that money will then just flow right over to another spouse, for example, in terms of control, and that's a great thing. From that point, though, what I would say is you have to have a lot more clarity on what happens upon the passing of the second spouse. That's extremely, extremely important. And what I will also say is that if nothing is done, let's say with a bank account, for example, then all of a sudden those dollars could be tied up in probate. And if anyone's gone through probate with a family member or a spouse, it's not fun. It'll leave you in a position that you have limited control for a period of time as you start to say, hey folks, this person passed away. And thus, has anyone got any concerns or complaints with that? And obviously tying some of that up with the courts can be costly. And once again, it can kind of open the door to different odds and ends and different folks that might have been disgruntled for different reasons, or just to make things a little muddier and waiting out how things maybe need to be split up upon someone's passing. That leads me to the idea of a beneficiary designation. And what I would tell you about that is at least that's a little bit of a guideline on saying, you know what, here's this IRA or this brokerage account, and this is how it should be distributed out upon my passing. I think that is really important to at least start to lay the groundwork for a lot of different ways of which we can take that yet a step further. That said, it kind of leads me to a few key components that I would really urge you to be thinking long and hard about and take some time with potentially your attorney to develop. The first is a will. And I jokingly say sometimes when I'm speaking maybe at a junior college or college, a library for an educational event, I'll say, folks, who has a will? And a lot of hands go up. And I say, now, how many of you have updated that will maybe in the last 5 years? And pretty much all the hands go down. And then I say, how about in the last decade? And still not really any hands that are shooting up. Next thing we know, we find out that, you pull that will out and you slowly kind of open it up and it looks like an old treasure map. It's something that you don't want to even open up all that quickly because it might just fall apart. And I say, now, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, when did you put that together? And they say, well, when Junior was born. And I say, how old is Junior, by the way? And they say, well, he's 45 now, actually, the more I get to thinking about it. My point here with this story is, folks, is that as you start to think about wills, they can, once again, help in a guideline on how things should be taken care of. And once again, I think that is extremely important to give some clarity and really some peace to, maybe your children or grandchildren. Another document you should be thinking about is a power of attorney. A POA you might see for financial matters and medical matters. And it's really a guideline on how things should be taken care of upon your passing. On a medical side, it allows you to give some instruction on saying, hey, this is how, I look at staying on life support, for example. Just that's a heavy one, but it is something that needs to be addressed. What are your desires and wishes, and how do you want that person to take care of those? The last thing that I'll speak to is a trust. A lot of folks will ask, Zach, do I need a trust? If so, what type of trust? And this can get a little bit into the weeds and gets a little bit muddy in terms of, do you need it? Do you not? What I would tell you is that it can be an excellent tool that can keep you away from probate. It can get your assets, capture them, and get them past that probate piece of the puzzle where you don't have to worry about that. It also gives a lot of instruction on how you want things to be handled, and frankly, it can give a lot of control from the grave, as I like to say. It gives you that opportunity to make sure that things are distributed upon to your liking, and also make sure that your wishes are carried out. So what I would tell you is that a lot of this is a lot to take in, but it is important to put this back to your plan. And I think that as you start to think about these moving parts, it is very, very important that you take some time to see what are your wishes, what are your spouse's wishes, and at the end of the day, do understand that when it's too late, it simply is too late. Back to you, Amy.
Still to come, we'll hear directly from you in our Q&A section. But first, here's a special offer from Zach and the team at Rooted Wealth Advisors. Stay with us.
There are some things you can't avoid, but you can avoid overpaying taxes in retirement. You may think your taxes will go down in retirement, but that's not always true. In fact, sometimes your tax liability could go up. We're offering a free guide to show how you may be able to pay fewer taxes in retirement. Learn how different retirement accounts are taxed and options to help make your retirement income more tax efficient, all in easy to understand terms. Download this free tax guide now to help keep what's yours and avoid overpaying taxes in retirement.
Welcome back to Rooted in Retirement with Zach Gray of Rooted Wealth Advisors.
Now it's time to get to some of the questions you have for Zach today. Are you ready for this one?
Let's give it our best shot.
It's always one of my favorite segments. Lots of great insight from you. And here is our first one from Gail in Muhammad. Do you recommend that people should take advantage of the catch-up provision and contribute more to their 401k once they turn 50? I don't really think that I need to put more money than I'm already putting into that account, but it would also be hard to pass up the opportunity to further reduce my taxable income this year.
Well, it can be a good idea, regardless of whether you need more in the accounts or not. Once again, back to the taxable comment, be aware, where am I at today? Where will I be in the future? Once again, I like to talk a lot about taxes, and I'll stay away from it the best I can, but I want to at least touch on the fact that we need to be aware, where am I at today on this income level? Will I drop significantly in retirement? Well, then putting some more money away, getting a tax deduction, that's okay. However, if I'm going to be maybe kind of where I'm at anyway in retirement, we have to at least scratch our head for a moment and say, what will happen with taxes in the future? So, two things there. Number one, putting any extra money away is surely fine. It's just going to make the numbers look better, maybe give some more comfort in retirement. However, that being said, back to the tax conversation, okay, do I really want that now? Where do I fall in terms of net taxable income? That can be a separate conversation in itself.
Okay, here's another one for you. This question is from John in Monticello. I'm 65 and considering a life insurance policy to help replace my pension income in case my wife outlives me by several years. Is it unusual for someone to be buying life insurance at my age?
Not uncommon, and that's a good example of why. We actually call that like a pension maximization strategy from time to time. Sometimes, Amy, we can pull a 100% benefit to just that person that's receiving the pension instead of having any survivorship benefit. That being said, that difference sometimes between what it is for just a sole person versus having a survivor, just that amount alone can sometimes fund a life insurance contract, and that does two things. Number one, maybe it recreates the pension if this person's gone. Secondarily, if this particular person that we mentioned outlives their spouse, now all of a sudden, this person's gotten a bigger paycheck every one of those months and will continue for the rest of their lives. And secondarily, they have a large life insurance contract that they can leave tax-free to their loved ones. So it can be a win-win. That's not always the case, but I will tell you that sometimes it is. We've even written multiple books on that about how can we maximize this pension, and that is a great nugget to take away from this conversation.
All right, here's another question for you from Donald in Savoy. Is there a helpful way to figure out how much income I'll need in retirement? I thought I knew exactly how much money we spend every month, but now that I've started crunching the numbers, it appears I was way off.
That is something that I think is a key foundational component. Know how much money you're going to spend. I know I've given this example in some other shows, but asking that question is something that sometimes rocks people back. They might come in with their statements and understand their performance and their fees and so on, but sometimes they don't even understand this basic concept of, okay, what's it going to take for Amy and her husband to be happy in retirement? What's it going to take for both of you to pay the bills, do what you want to do, kind of forecast or think about, well, maybe someday we'll have grandkids and, boy, what would that take and how does that look and feel? We miss the boat sometimes by not even having that foundational conversation. And we've had that happen where someone says, oh, Zach, $5,000, $6,000 a month, we're in great shape. And then all of a sudden it turns into $9,000 or $10,000 a month. That's a totally different conversation to be had. Different planning should take place, different tax moves, things of the nature. So all I would say is yeah, it is good that at least this particular person's aware that we need to be thinking about that because it changes everything. Once again, income is the outcome we're after. There's no retirement without income, and you want to make sure that it's enough to take care of the budget.
And there are so many more Saturdays in retirement. You
Amen.
have to remember that as well. And if you have a question, feel free to submit it. We just might answer it on a future show. And don't hesitate to act on the information you've heard today. It never hurts to call, even if it's for a second opinion. Don't wait. Call now. For Zach and the team at Rooted Wealth Advisors, I'm Amy Sharp. Have a great day and an even better retirement.